Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
Such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet. Today I have a very special guest, actress SARAH MCDONALD. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Can you talk about your upbringing? When did you get into liking films and possibly wanting being an actor someday?
I kind of have always loved movies. Both my mom and my dad are big cinephiles. I've been into film probably since I can remember, but wanting to be an actress sort of started more in high school when I also started making my own cinematic decisions and making my favorites of everything and deciding what I thought was good art and what was not. Because my parents are also artists. And I really wanted to be an actress because I thought, I don't know, just how in older movies they show the bloopers afterwards and the credits, Yeah. That always looked like so much fun to me, like the actual making of the thing. Not only the thing is an art piece, but also just creating it and getting to be a team and a community with a certain group of people for, a short amount of time, but getting to that very close nature to loving everybody and working together. That's kind of what I was looking for when I decided that I wanted to be an actress.
Were you doing plays in high school and things like that?
Hold on, I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, this might be a problem because I can't hear you at all.
Oh, you can't hear me? See, microphone on.
Okay, let me try coming out and coming back in.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I think the spirits of Amityville do not want us to do this interview.
They don't want me spilling any secrets.
Did you hear me about the question about high school? Did you do plays or anything like that?
I worked on crew in high school. I think wanting to make productions came before wanting to be in productions. So I did a lot of the, making the sets and doing the makeup and doing all that stuff before I started thinking about actually acting in them. So I did a lot of crew work in high school.
Now, I've talked to other actors, and what's interesting is when they get to graduating high school, there's college and there's getting a degree, but that's not always the case. Sometimes people just go straight into Hollywood. What route did you take?
I moved to Chicago when I was 18, and I immediately got into doing background work, being an extra in certain TV shows that were filming there. But I also knew that, acting is kind of famously not the most reliable job. So I did get a degree in user experience and user interface, graphic design stuff. But I think my goal has always been to just be creating film and TV. So while I was getting my degree, I was also acting in lots of short films. And actually, while I was getting my degree, I acted in this film. And so I do have a degree that I use, but I also I also am like more of a self-taught actress and didn't really go to school for that. But I did just do everything in my power to find projects to work on.
When you're an extra, were you taking in the scenery, like watching the actors and directors because you are self-taught and kind of like sponging off of what's going on? Because I've never wanted to be an actor, but I did for fun, do some extra stuff, background work, which was interesting. But I realized, man, it's a grueling schedule. It's tough to be an actor.
It is. Even when you're just doing the extra work, it's like 15-hour days for like just a one scene, maybe even. It is a very grueling schedule, and I made it work with school. I did find like working on the weekends was better, but while I was on set, I was watching everybody. I was watching the actors, I was watching the gaffers, the cinematographers, the director, and everyone, just watching how they kind of work together and all of their individual jobs, just wanting to know like what I could possibly do and what looked easy to me or what looked interesting to me. Just watching all the moving parts together is really interesting. Not only just the acting, but watching, the crew put the whole thing together for the actors to step in and say, hey, I'm in this playground now, and I can feel free to do whatever, comes to me at that time. So I think it's important for everyone and to like be on a set and just be very observant.
So
Yeah.
were you going to school and acting at the same time? Because I actually work graveyard shift, so I know how it is to be in the upside down. And I don't know if people understand truly how it throws off your clock and your sleep.
It does.
And it's like anxiety-ridden time.
It can be. I mean, obviously you don't do it if you don't love it. But being up, as you said, upside down is not foreign to me. I remember like when I was in school, I would do all my schoolwork, I would go to class, and then I would come home and learn my lines, and then I would work all night doing night shoots. And then I would wake up, like I would on the weekends wake up at like 4 p.m. and then work until 11 a.m. Working like back to back in those weird shifts is difficult on your brain. It's not easy to do, but
being
also
a vampire, right?
it is. Yeah.
So Atlanta's very, Hollywood obviously is the place to be, but Atlanta has a very big film community there. Do you find you're having good luck over there with roles?
Yeah. So far. I mean, I did just move here. I moved from New York in August, and I kind of moved here for that purpose, to sort of get into the filming scene that's going on down here. So I have like, my agency's been sending me things here and there, but I haven't found, I think for me in Atlanta, I'm in this stage of my career. Like I am filming as an actress, some other things going on, but I also right now would love to learn more about the backside of, being behind the camera and learning more about production as it pertains to me and what I would like to create. So in Atlanta, that's kind of what I'm doing. Not so much the acting, but more of the like film production side of things.
Can you talk about the couple of short films that you did before Amityville?
Yeah. I I have always kind of like leaned towards horror. And also I've just been getting cast in horrors for a long time. So I did a film called Trattoria, which was based on the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey. And it was like, I go into this restaurant and everybody's eating the food like in Pan's Labyrinth, and they all eat the food and they're stuck there forever. And I'm like the one person who's trying to get out of here. And that was a really fun production, but that was all at night also. That was a hard one. And then I did a rom-com also in between doing these two things.
Well, a lot
Called,
of actors, you could look at almost every A-list actor, and on their resume is a horror film. Usually at the beginning, like George Clooney did like 2 movies. He did this one called Return to Horror High, and Return of the Killer Tomatoes. So everybody kind of has their horror is just a very easy, I guess, industry to get into. And some people make a career of it. Some of it, they go mainstream. But I think it's a good thing that, you know, horror just seems to always be, I mean, look at the box office now. A lot of movies are struggling, yet there's always these movies like, trying to think of the ones that just came out, The Substance and all these kind of low budget films.
Hold
And it
on, I'm
doesn't,
having a sound issue again, I think.
okay,
One moment, please.
no worries.
Oh my God.
It's okay, folks. This is what happens, you know, with technology. You just have to wait.
I think I
Sorry
solved
about.
it permanently.
Okay, no worries. We'll just go with the flow. Yeah, I was talking about low, you know, horror films always just seem to be there for Hollywood. They, you know,
Yeah.
they're fairly low budget, easy to get return on investment. And yeah, do you see yourself, you know, doing a lot of these, or would you like to broaden your horizons and just do, you know, a little bit of, you know, everything?
Obviously, I would love to do a little bit of everything, but if I'm, you know, stuck in horror forever, I'm not going to be upset about that, I think. You know, I grew up watching a lot of horror movies with my mom, and when I say a lot, I mean it's like religiously, like 3 movies a day, like all day, every day, watching
Mhm.
horror movies. So I think, you know, it wouldn't be something that I'd be opposed to staying into and like honing my craft in the horror sphere, because there are so many amazing things coming out right now. Like Elijah Wood's company Spectre Vision has made like Mandy, Color Out of Space, like those interesting like H.P. Lovecraftian sort of horrors. I think I'm really drawn to, and I'm definitely more interested in seeing like what I could do with more sci-fi in a horror sphere, you know? So I'm thinking like there's a lot of really interesting things going on in this world right now, and I'd be interested to see what I could do with that.
So now you grew up watching horror. What were you watching? Like, what were some of the directors or the films? Was it the 80s, 90s? Where were you going?
Kind of all over the place. I mean, we loved like those really cheesy B movies like Basket Case. I don't know if you've seen, and like the Thing and The Stuff and the, you know, those. I'm sounds like I'm just saying gibberish, but those are names of movies.
Oh,
Um,
no, I know Basket Case 2, Basket Case
yeah,
3, The
yeah.
Stuff with, you know, I met the director who's passed away now, Larry Cohen. He directed The Stuff, and I went to a Q&A, and I was able to get a prop, the one of the cups. I have it in my, actually
That's
behind
so
me.
cool. I love
So it's
that.
actually a screen used prop. So no, you're talking campy horror. That's kind of like
Yeah,
my comfort zone. But I
yeah.
watch a little bit of everything, like you said.
Hmm. Yeah, me
So
too.
were you now? What were the directors that were kind of like? Was it John Carpenter? I mean, who were you kind of like gravitating toward?
I mean, I feel like John Carpenter is like the obvious one because he was doing everything under the sun. Um, but directors, let's see. I liked I like I also like horror comedies a lot. So like what Joss Whedon did with Cabin in the Woods was really interesting to me. Like kind of flipping the genre a little bit, and that was like one of the first horror comedies I kind of was introduced to. So I don't know, those directors that are like adding humor to these very horrific situations, I think are where I'm like leaning. Let's see. Who did Jeepers Creepers, the first one?
Vic Alva. That no, it's a good film, but he does have a history that I will talk about with you backstage.
Okay, well,
It's no, that's a very popular film, and I think there's he did Jeepers Creepers 2. He actually did a prequel 3, and then he did a remake, another director a couple years ago. So yeah, the early 2000s. So you like kind of like the humor and the horror.
yeah, definitely.
Now, are you familiar with the Amityville horror, the book, the movie that was based off the book, and those kind of things?
Before this movie, I was not. I mean, I knew about the Amity horror, like house in Long Island. And I like knew the general lore of that, but I didn't know that there was like such a series of films going on under the Amity umbrella. And so discovering that has kind of been really fun for me because I am into the campy stuff, and I love discovering new things in general, but also like getting to be a part of this like ongoing cult in some way. It has been very interesting for me to like get to learn all the lore around Amityville and all the movies that are kind of like in this umbrella. And I'm very happy to be a part of it as well.
For people that don't know out there, basically, the movie's really, the name Amityville is kind of public domain. It's a village in New York, so anyone really can make a film and put Amityville on it. If I want to make a movie called Amityville Plushies, I could do it because anybody can do it. Because so you start off with the original film based off the book. There were a couple sequels that were linked, but the 2000s on, I lost count of how many there are. But we're going to get to your film, Amityville, Where the Echo Lives. How did you get cast?
The director, I think, was looking around for some time for an actress to put in this story. And I don't know that they were able to really find like luck with the actors in the area that they had been surveying. And I was modeling also at the time, and the director approached me on Instagram saying like I very much like the expression in your face and how, emotional you look behind the lens of a camera. And so I came in and we had a meeting and we discussed the premise of the film and everything, and discussed like where I was in my acting journey and everything, which was very new at the time. And so we just kind of hit it off in that conversation, and went to a little table read, did a little bit of preliminary stuff, and then I think we just decided to work together. We really liked each other, and but I was found on Instagram.
So for people out there that don't think social media pays off, Sarah got a film role, the starring role as a paranormal investigator from Instagram. So I know, there's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's Threads. I always think it's a good thing because it's just the easier way of finding people. There's the old school way of trying out in person, but to me, social media presence is important. So that must have made you go, "Oh my God, if I wouldn't have had Instagram, I wouldn't have got this role probably."
I probably wouldn't have. I don't think there's any way he would have found me because I wasn't on Backstage and I wasn't on any of those, general casting websites like Actors Access and things like that. I was not putting myself out there in that way. I was doing a lot of work as a photographer and as a model. And I think that is what got me recognized originally. But now that I've been kind of around a little more and I am on those websites and stuff, like my social media doesn't cease to be important. It's just like I haven't been getting like roles that way since then. It's more been the traditional avenues of like going to auditions and meeting with agents and things like that. So, but I think like for the chances of, somebody someday contacting you on Instagram being like, "Hey, I have a project, I would love to work with you on it." I think it's always important to like keep an open mind and keep yourself updated on the internet so that people can see what you're doing, what you look like, what you can bring to the table and all that.
Was this the director that found you?
Yes. Yeah.
And does he have a role in the film too?
He plays the murderer.
So you're fairly new to acting. How does one go about remembering a script? I'll sometimes have to look at a text 3 different times to remember what somebody put. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting old or something. I mean, how did you go about memorizing lines and putting yourself in that headspace?
With this movie, we were both kind of coming at it from like an experimental place. We just wanted to see what we could do and what we could put together. So the script wasn't like, some people have scripts that are very, you have to stick to word by word because there's pacing and there's rhythm and there's all kinds of things written into the script. But this script was a little more improvised. It was written in a way that like let me sort of run with it and let me phrase it however I wanted to phrase it. So I didn't technically have to remember word by word every single thing. But when I do remember word by word every single thing, I think, a number of different ways of remembering. I can record myself reading it out loud on my phone and just listen to it all the time, like if I'm commuting or whatever. And I also write it out by hand because that helps me remember things more like concretely. And I think you just take it scene by scene. If you know what scene you're going to be working on the next time, you just work on that scene and try not to focus too much on the being as a whole. And take it line by line and just try to remember it like as if it were a song lyric or something like that.
Did you do any kind of research into like paranormal investigating, those kind of people that do that, or just like, I'm going to do it my own way?
I have done a little research into that. I mostly did it my own way. I didn't want to do too much research because I thought that Heather is my character. She was coming into paranormal investigating as a way to speak with her recently deceased father. And so and she and her father were big fans of paranormal investigation, and they knew all that, all the technicalities going into it. But also just from like what I've gathered from the cultural zeitgeist of watching Ghost Hunters and watching,
Those shows
all
are
of those.
popular. I mean, that's
they are popular for a reason. They're very entertaining. And so I feel like I've gathered a lot of information from watching those shows and seeing like how they put together a hunt and all that stuff. Like I didn't go out and do it myself to try it out because I'm a little bit spooked out by that, but I did definitely like pick up some things here and there from existing paranormal activity shows.
Do you think ghosts are real in real life?
I think I think so. I think that there's like different planes that people can be on. And I think that at certain points that you can maybe not communicate, but you can recognize that there's maybe something existing in a different plane, but in the same space. You know what I mean?
I think people leave things behind that could be
Yeah.
called ghosts. Because
Yeah.
I've worked in buildings and stuff, and you hear things, and it might be the building settling, it might be, something from the past. I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
People could call it ghost or whatever. I think there's a past that kind of doesn't leave us. There's kind of always memories and things like that. So let's talk about what you do besides, I believe you do photography. What else are you doing besides acting?
Besides acting, I love art in general. So I do photography, illustration, graphic design, everything that I can feasibly try to put my hands on, I'm trying to do it. I just love to create things. I don't care really what happens to them or, where I'm going to put it. I don't really make art in that way. I just sort of create things and then hope that they find the right audience, which is kind of working, I think. But yeah, I mean, photography, I think, is my main one. I do a lot of fashion photography for people. I was working in New York as a fashion photographer, but I also do a lot of fine arts photography with like very rich color and a lot of like in-camera effects that are interesting. So it's not all very like clean. It's very colorful and punchy stuff. And the illustrations I do are a little more creepy. They're kind of like little creatures and goblins and ghouls that I like to come up with in my head and draw them in my sketchbooks and put them on my website and all that stuff. So,
And I appreciate that your models are not this size. They're not
yeah.
size 0. And the reason I say that is, and I can kind of put my money where my mouth is, my wife is plus size.
Hmm.
So, and I know Hollywood has this expectation that these women be thin as a rail. And so that is nice change of pace, not just for the Amityville film, but the modeling that you're doing, as well as, the people that you're modeling with, with in front of the camera.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not realistic, but neither are movies in general. But also, I think like we're reaching a point where people just don't want to see one type of person all the time. They want to be able to put themselves or like someone they know into the shoes of whatever they're watching, and be able to relate to it in that way, and see just see diversity a little more.
Well, yeah, because everything right now, there's a lot of filters. And I have my daughter who's 13, and she's like looking at these things. And I go, that's filtered, right? That's not how they really look. They look
Yeah.
like anime characters or cartoon characters. I go, we all could do that to ourselves and make ourselves project a certain image. But in real life, we all have flaws.
Hmm.
We all have freckles or whatever, but I just try to tell her, look, don't get the body dysmorphia. Because it's tough. It's a different age because of
Yeah.
the great stuff about social media and all that. There's the downside, which is unrealistic appearances of people. And that's just not, everybody, they take photos and they're like at a waterfall. I'm like, that's not every day of their life. You know what I'm saying? That's just,
Yeah.
so it's just a very tricky time to kind of navigate those things.
Yeah, it is, especially with younger audiences who take things so face value. It's harder to explain that, you don't have to look like what's on the screen just because somebody says like that's what, Hollywood needs to be, is like this specific category of person. And I think that like having more opportunity to show different people and to show more realistic depictions of people is like such a healthier thing to do moving forward. Because I remember when I was a teenager, I had the same things. I had body image issues and all that, and I think a lot of them do, if not all of them, teenagers. uh so I think like
Yeah.
the more we can do to set reality aside from this manufactured sort of look is probably the best we can do to just like put different faces up.